Hey there everyone, welcome back. I've got a quick video and tip for you all on the only crafting tool you need to modify the images of your stamps. Sometimes I like a little bit of control over how the images look, or sometimes your well-loved stamps could use some tweaking for a specific recipient. It's possible, believe me, and there's no stamp cutting here. Before I get into how to do this, all the materials I used in this video can be found in the description box below. While you're there, please subscribe and like this video for more card making tutorials. Okay, so to illustrate this technique, I'll use the new Hey Gorgeous 4x6 stamp set from Ink on 3 and my well-loved Ink on 3 Fadeout ink. I'm going to use the no outline coloring properties of this incredible ink to help change up the main image of the floppy hat into something slightly different. In my MISTI, I'm placing the larger image on a panel of Copic-friendly paper. I like using Nina 80-pound smooth white cardstock. Then I'll ink up part of the image using Fadeout ink. I'm applying ink to the hat and rotating the ink pad to get parts of the face and neck. If I feel like I overshot the outline a little bit, no worries, I'll wipe off the ink with my finger or paper towel. Basically, I'm removing as much of the ink off her hair as I can. I'll repeat the inking and stamping a few times to make sure I capture as much of the outline detail as I can, but also giving me a good foundation to see how I can slightly alter this image for a different look to this card. Here is the resulting image. You can see I overshot slightly, but that's the beauty of this fade out ink. While the impression is visible, once alcohol markers go over it, you won't see the outline anymore, unlike a dye ink that could still be visible or feather under alcohol-based markers. Okay, so I'll clean off my stamp with Ink Off Stamp Cleaner. My ink pad is really dirty because I use it a lot. Just lightly tap the surface of your stamp and wipe off with your Ink on 3 microfiber cloth. I like this stamp cleaner because there's no spray waste, and this Ink Off stamp also conditions your photopolymer stamp for subsequent crisp images. I've used it on embossing ink, alcohol-friendly black ink, dye inks across the color spectrum, and pigment inks. They all come right off the stamp. Okay, so I zoomed in a little bit and taped down my cardstock just so we aren't shifting around too much. I'm just taking a regular mechanical pencil and my kneaded eraser to roughly sketch how I want this image to look. Now, I never consider myself a great illustrator, so this was a challenge for me, but with a lot of patience and some erasing, I was able to get a sketch of a woman in braids, a heavy necklace, earrings, and I added a nose to the original image. If this image looks familiar to you, it's from Beyonce's Formation music video. It's the first thing that came to mind when I first saw the floppy hat woman in the stamp set. There are a few Copic-friendly black ink pens on the market. I use Pigma Micron pens because they're readily accessible at your big box stores or your favorite scrapbook online shops. If they carry Ink on 3 products, most likely they'll have the Micron pen sets. But I'll switch between the 02 and 03 pen weights to trace the pencil sketch outline I just made. I made a small smudge boo-boo on top of Beyonce's hat, so I'm using a scrap piece of paper to rest my hands so I don't accidentally smudge any more ink. I don't have a lot of Copic markers, especially in skin tones, but I have enough to mix colors slightly for a believable medium complexion. By adding V000 as my base shadow, I was able to get realistic brown cast shadows from the large hat. I did the same to the braids for some depth. As for the floppy hat, I used the warm gray Copic markers. Oh, and I also used the warm grays on her lips for a black lipstick. I left the jewelry uncolored just so it pops above everything since this is already a very dark image. I don't have the colorless blender, but I knew for her complexion, E40 would complement the facial highlights such as the cupid's bow around the mouth and nose. After coloring the image, I erased some of the residual pencil marks with the kneaded eraser and added more black outline details with the 01 micron pen. I used a swivel knife to fussy cut this image, and here she is, nearly ready to take front and center on my card. For my background, I'm keeping it simple. I'm taking the packaging the stamps came in, Ink on 3 Atelier Fusion ink in my jam purple, and paint it black. I'll drag a light stripe of the ink directly onto the packaging. Mist the ink with my water spray bottle until the ink starts to move freely, and then apply ink blotches onto my watercolor panel. I'll overlay the background with painted black for a dark purple mix. Once this watercolor panel is dry, I'll foam raise Beyonce on top of the note card base. There were so many lyrics I could have used for this card, but to make this custom sentiment, I used my favorite embossing label maker. At first, I thought I liked this "You Slay" sentiment, but then I just opted for Slay. I finished this card with glossy accents on the lips for this Slay All Day card. Hey, thanks so much for tuning into this Ink on 3 video. I love using Ink on 3 Fade Out to change up my stamps, especially if you're wanting images that you can identify with. Let me know what you think of this card, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that button down below. You'll also find the materials I used in this video in the description box, and if you like this card, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and have the best day.